Hi, everyone. I welcome everybody to this session. My name is Mandeep Rekhi. I am a dance practitioner, choreographer based in Delhi. And I'm delighted to be here this evening talking to Avril Stormy Unger and her team, her collaborators, for the two works that are premiering at the Orion Festival, Untangle and Mirage. Um, what is really exciting about Avril's work for me personally is that it cuts across so many different disciplines. Her practice spans durational performance, movement art, public interventions, installations. And what for me is really quite exciting about these two works is that they pose very, very potent questions around queerness, agency, class, access, privilege. There's so many questions that I thought that actually the way we can structure today's session is that I have a dialogue with Avril, ask her a couple of questions around these two works. And we also show you two short clips of the work as we go. Then we open up some questions to the larger team of these two projects, and also opened up to questions from all of you who are present here today. What would be, and I think that's quite almost impossible, but let's try and do that, is to keep this Zoom meeting quite informal. And I think it's there is something about Zoom that gives it a kind of formality, also because you don't see each other. You don't know who is listening in and who are we talking to. So at any point, just pop in your questions. And I think that's a very, very important thing to do, to pop in your questions, thoughts, anything that that strikes you, even if it's unformed, let that come into the chat box. And then I'm really hoping for a really informal conversation around all of these questions that these two works open up. So I'm just going to pass it on to Avril to introduce the team for us.
Hi everybody. Hi Mandeep, thank you. So my team consists of 4 people actually: Prashansa, Sonal, Paro, and Nabi. Nabi unfortunately is not able to be here today. He's been sick and he's not keeping too well, so he's not able to join us. But we have Prashansa with us, Prashansa Gurung. She came all the way from Darjeeling to shoot this work with us. Prashansa is a storyteller, and she generally is a person with a lot of spark and spunk and energy, which is just beautiful. We had a really fun time hanging out for about 10 days, I think, shooting both the works. She's really hardworking. She was running around all across this mall, trying to get all these different angles. The camera couldn't be spotted, the other cameras couldn't be spotted. And generally, she's a storyteller. She works with images, moving images. She's also curator, founder of Pictures Against Prejudice. She's worked with different collectives, photo projects for like Gacy, Queering. She's done a lot of work with a focus on gender and sexuality. She's from Darjeeling, and right now she's also started her latest venture called Darjeeling, which is a Himalayan lifestyle brand from Darjeeling. And it's again about stories and storytelling, and we can talk to her about it directly. The next collaborator I'd like to introduce is Sonal. Sonal is a LGBTQ activist and filmmaker. Sonal has worked with Prashansa in the past, and together they have made a couple of films, Unheard Stories 1 and 2, and Shadi Ke Kapde, which has been featured across various festivals, film festivals. She's also the co-founder of the largest youth LGBTQ youth initiative, Yaria and Umang. And yeah, she works on human rights and crisis handling of the queer community for the past 8 years. So Sonal has been working with me for over a year and part of 4 to 5 projects that she's been doing production work with me, from getting everything we need to handling all the people who are working, and also my own ups and downs and stresses, getting permissions from malls, all of this. Sonal is a very hands-on kind of person. So welcome, Sonal. So glad to have you. Next person I'd like to introduce is Paro. Paro is a dear friend and just a beautiful person. She does drawing and illustration work. And apart from that, she makes beautiful music. I had only seen Paro play live, and I knew exactly that when I'm making Untangle, I wanted Paro to do the sound because her sound complements the image of what I wanted it to look like. So Paro is just, to me, she is like an ancient bird and an ancient tree singing songs beautifully. Her drawing work is insanely beautiful. You have to go check it out on her Instagram. We will meet Paro while later on this talk. And Nabi, who's not here, but he was the editor of the projects. And he's a filmmaker with a passion for cinematography and post-production. And he really works with a lot of artists to execute their vision. Ahmed is from Cairo, but he's right now in New York City. And we have worked together in the past. We have traveled and shot stuff that we just randomly put together. And it had been such a fun experience that I decided to go ahead with Ahmed. So, Nabi. So yeah, that's my team. Should we, yeah.
Let's look at a little clip of Untangle actually before we begin. Yeah. Hey, Avril, um, my first sort of response to the work is around the question of queerness. As I was watching the work in its full length, um, I began to think about how what the work is proposing is queerness not as an identity, but queerness as a process. Because in the work, in both the works, in a way, there's a kind of there is a process of becoming and unbecoming, and you never really become anything before the hair has been untangled. It begins to get tangled up again. So we're constantly sort of going through this journey of becoming and unbecoming. Um, and in a way, for me, this question of identity as something that is actually being, in a sense, being blurred constantly rather than actually getting consolidated, feels like a really kind of potent proposition. And I would really like to hear from you whether there's something that whether that's something that you've thought of consciously as far as queerness is concerned.
Yeah. So with both the works, I wanted this feeling of like, this just keeps going on and on and on. And it's like both are kind of loop-based works from the top to the beginning. It again loops again in the beginning. So for me, when I started thinking about it, I was straight up thinking about hair and how we internalize certain things. We internalize certain conditioning and how we have to unlearn, and it's a lot of effort to actually unlearn all these things. And then you maybe unlearn something, but that process is not done, and then there's a new process that begins again. So this loop based feeling of unbecoming and becoming in that process, and then again unbecoming, and that's what I was trying to go for. During the process of making Untangle, a lot of questions about queerness started coming up for me. And I was also discussing this with Nabi and Sonal and questions of the entire team, actually, of this straightening and this internalized compulsory heterosexuality and how much it takes to actually unlearn those things and think about those things. So yeah, in the larger scheme of things, I wanted it to be about anything that someone may be connecting with. Might be about fairness or hair or external things and also internal things, because this eating of hair and removing of hair, and that for me symbolizes like internalizing something, and then you take agency to remove it out. So that's the kind of space that I was playing with. And I feel like a lot of my work is this continuous. It does not really reach a point where it ends, because I feel like life is like that. Things just loop. So I really enjoy this feeling of some anticlimax in the end, or like some feeling of unsettling, like it's not over, and even after you see it, maybe later you'll still think of it because it's not finished, that kind of feeling.
Yeah, I quite like this the thought of queerness as a kind of process of unlearning.
Yes,
And I
because there
think
is so much of unlearning that has to happen, considering society and how these things are just, it's not an option really when you're young to think that you could be gay or you could be queer. You have to find it out yourself. So it's a long process, yeah.
and the irony is that the minute you start unlearning something, you're already learning something else, and then the process begins again, and it's in a way it is like a loop, which is what your works are also sort of setting up. Relatedly, I also wanted to think about queerness also as a form, because your work doesn't belong to any one discipline. It sort of sits in the middle of many boundaries, in a sense, again, flouting any kind of identity from getting consolidated. Also, as a maker, in terms of form, you're looking at a kind of queerness of form. And I just wanted to hear from you, where do you locate yourself as far as your practice is concerned? And how do you think of that also as a kind of form of queerness?
Yeah, so I think as far as my practice, I've always found myself outside of the norm, outside of a discipline, outside of a genre, outside of a venue, outside of every situation. And maybe that is my queerness that's coming through. But it also could be that I've just not felt inside it ever. So whether it is with dance or anything, I've not felt inside the system. So I've just had to find ways to navigate it from outside and just keep doing. And that is a sense of just keep being, right? You just have to be who you are. And at some point, hopefully, something will catch up with you. But yeah, and even in terms of form, I do say I am more like anti-disciplinary rather than interdisciplinary. And I feel like I put myself in that position, but I've also been forced to get into that position. And if there is an idea that appeals to me, I am okay to look at a medium that justifies that work. Like if I feel like this work needs to be really direct, then I will do a photo series, because through movement, I may not be able to convey that kind of an energy that I want. So I think that also comes from the fact that I'm a self-taught artist and I've just had to navigate my space on my own terms. So maybe there are limitations to that, but it's also very liberating to have the option to just try a different medium. Like Madhu from Oyun told me 2 video works that are performance. And instead of like Mirage is a performance work, which is something that I generally do. So instead of doing 2 of those where I'm performing and shooting, I thought, okay, this is an opportunity to play with video. Let's try something out. So, yeah.
I remember you saying to me in one of the conversations that we had earlier about how what excites you is to find the work in its form, as well as what you're saying through your work in the doing of the work.
Yes.
And I find that really exciting, actually, as a proposition that you're not sort of placing the burden of the work on in your brain or in your mind, but you're saying actually in the doing, in the kind of doing with all of these disciplines, finding a new form that you are able to arrive at the work. And I think that's very, very exciting.
Yeah, it's in my mind for a long time, and then it's in the doing, which is quite exciting. So even with this work, like Untangle, it's my first time doing a video work of this kind of length and this, after we shot it, I felt like I was done. Like, now what's the point? Now it's over, But so it was a process to look at the footage and look at the edits, and it was just like, oh, I shot it. This was performance. It's over now. But I do really enjoy that process of actually doing it. And because I think time-based work, it's like long time, that plays into this feeling of wanting to really just do it.
I have a bit of a personal question actually now, that in this particular work, like in all your works actually, how do you navigate this tension between the personal and the private space and the public space? Because the work gets shown to an audience that has no direct relationship with you, and yet your work draws from something very, very personal. Especially with Untangle, I know that you also had personal revelations around your sexuality. How do you negotiate the two? Your own personal life as well as the fact that this work is outside of you and it is, not really about you in some sense.
Yeah, yeah. I don't really navigate it. I just, all my work is personal. It's true, because a lot of the work that I do is for me to find something that I am looking for. With Untangle, so usually work stay with me for a couple of years before I put it out, because it's so personal and I need some distance from it before I put it out, and some perspective to be like, is this okay to put out, right? But with Untangle, for example, it was something that I just wanted to make, and I felt like it was coming from somewhere really deep inside, like birthing something, not understanding what really. But in the process, it was very vulnerable, it was very difficult, intense, powerful, all of this. And I am generally a very private person, but my work is very public. And so if you see my work, you see a window into my private life, I guess. So I don't really navigate it because I need to make the work. I just need to make the work. I can make the work just for myself, but I'm lucky to be able to put it out so others also can experience it. But honestly, I make work for myself. It is my form of healing, of processing, and there are certain works like Untangle, which I know is going to do something in the end of it, and then it's just about creating the mind space and the energy to actually go through it. And on the other side, a work is ready and made and it's put out. And then I do feel a sort of disconnect from the work once it's ready and out. Because by the time that happens, I have had my own process and I've changed and I've become a different person on the other side of it. So yes, that may be a personal thing that's out there, but it's not so close to me anymore. And I'm okay with it being there. So I think that's how I've been navigating this space. So it's not very common for me to repeat the same works, just depending on the mind space and the time in my life that I feel like, okay, maybe this is a work I need to do now because I need to process it. So I will bring it back from the past and make a new iteration of it to help me. It's just really nice that I'm able to share it, but I'm happy to make work and just be alone with it. Yeah.
So at the heart of both the works is the labor of the body. So for me, as you were saying that you process your own life through your work, and to me it feels like actually you are processing your life through your body, through the labor of the body. In both these works, we especially in Untangle, you see sweat, saliva, the heat of the body, the hair, the waist, all of those become a kind of performers of the work, right? Your body in its various forms becomes a performer of the work. So how do you see, for you, how do you see the role of the body in becoming a sort of performer of resistance? How do you place the body there?
It's exactly that. I see the body as a tool of resistance rather than endurance. I mean, I do put my body through some things to be able to do the work, but while I'm doing it, I never think of it as endurance. It's more resistance. I mean, if I think of it as endurance, I may not be able to do it, But like when you're talking about Untangle, I really never thought of the body. It was more like my hair is performing and my hair is doing its things. It's not something I was thinking, but of course I was chewing the hair and all of that. And there is a lot of labor that goes in, but it's not something that I look at as labor, but more as a sort of resistance. I feel like time-based work is also a form of resistance rather than a form of endurance, or, you know what I'm saying? I feel like my team did a lot more labor than me. Like Prashansa did a lot of labor, and Sonal, I mean, the fact that I was on the stairs, I was climbing, and that was exhausting for sure, but they were running around this 4-floor mall. Uh, you know, their body was going through so much having to do that. Even with Untangle, I'm sitting on the chair and my hair's doing its thing. So yeah, I think that's my relationship with my body, and its relationship with labor is, it's more like, this is my form of resistance and I need to do this in this way rather than labor.
Maybe this is a good moment to look at a clip of Mirage, no? Since
Yeah.
we've spoken about the escalators.
Yeah.
So we come back after having watched it and talk a little bit more. Avril, do you want to talk about a little bit about the process of making of this work? Like where did it come from, and what triggered the work for you?
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, maybe 4 now, 2017, I went to Rajasthan to learn folk dance and folk music. There's a lot of history to that too, but I went to Rajasthan and I met these teachers, my first teachers ever, to teach me any dance or music. And it was a very intimate kind of process, staying, living, watching them perform, learning. Every day they perform the same performance in the same venues. And around that time, I mean, there's a lot to it actually. The fact that it's located, it was in Jaisalmer and a small village of Jaisalmer called Khuri. Khuri is where all the foreigners come to spend one night in the dunes. So they come in the evening and then they see the sunset, and then there's this dance and music performance that my teachers were doing. And then there's dinner, and then they go stay in the forest. I mean, not in the forest, in the dunes, and they come back, have breakfast, and leave. And this is like a loop every single day, the same thing. And like these establishments are like right at the dunes, you know, facing this way. And behind this is like a huge village of all these people who go to get water and come back, who are just dancing and singing for their own selves, for their hearts and souls, and for community. things that I had not experienced before. And I found a deep sense of belonging because I was the first student that this teacher had who was Indian in the 25 years that she's been teaching this dance. And for her to be able to teach me, she had to make me her sister because that's the only way it's passed on. Like you have to be family and I wanted to stay back, and I was in awe of all these people, how they just performing every day the same stuff, and they finish, and then in the nights, late night, midnight, we're dancing, we're learning, we're dancing, singing, and I was called back to do a show, like an international show. I had to come back to Bangalore, and I just started to question everything, like, whom am I dancing for? What is the point? Like, these people dance every day. They dance for themselves. They dance for nature. If it rains, they dance. If it's sunny, they dance. And I just started to question, like, the access that they don't have that I have. I didn't want to come back for this show, but I came back, and honestly, it was the worst performance of my life because I was just so messed up by, like, I wanted to bring them and they didn't have language to navigate the space that we are navigating. They had these middle people who are doing this for them, and they do the same dance every day on the same songs. And so it was this like entire thing, this experience that made me start to think of how do I say this in just a simple way. And that's how Mirage came up for me. The sense of hope on the other side, but you never kind of reach. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, Mirage has this a kind of persistence, right?
Yes.
You're going up the escalator, trying to get to the top of the escalator. In a way, sort of enter another kind of world that you would never really get access to, but you're still trying. So this question of class, access, privilege, all of it is very, very alive in this work. But I wanted to actually pose a bit of a question around appropriation, because I think of that very often in dance as well when I'm making work, is whenever you start thinking about making work where you're representing somebody else in a sense, one has to think through the question of appropriation in a critical way, because by you performing this dance and being on the escalator, and this work being performed on an international platform, Embodied Arts Festival, in a way there is a chance that the cycle of privilege is being performed all over again, because then you get to work, show your work at the festival, and Meera Didi, who you've learned from, is still not accessing those spaces. So how do you work around these questions?
Yeah, so for me, when I think about appropriation, it takes me back to me and my life as growing up as a Roman Catholic Anglo family in India, right? There's always a sense, there had always been a sense of a detachment from anything Indian. I grew up learning jive and waltz and foxtrot and wearing frocks. Thinking that anything Indian is beneath me, or anything Indian is Hindu, or this is the culture that I grew up in. And I've always struggled to find a sense of Indianness, or not even Indianness, a sense of identity for myself, and maybe that is why I have been really drawn towards folk arts and folk music and folk dance. When I started learning Bharatnatyam or Kathak, if I perform Kathak or Bharatnatyam as an Indian who's a Roman Catholic, is that appropriation? Like, these are things that I think about also. Like it's okay to learn Bharatanatyam and Kathak and perform it, but it's not okay to perform folk dance. Also, I think what I was doing in this work is removing myself from it and more looking at this image of this person itself being a metaphor, the pot being a metaphor, rather than me being there. I wouldn't want Meera Didi to climb the stairs. Their bodies go through so much in just dancing every single day, you know? And this is what I took out of that to put myself through it to show this, right? But I also do think this a lot, especially with dance and contemporary dance, like, are we appropriating if we are doing contemporary dance? Or like, do we Indianize it and then it just does not feel right? And like, where is this line? So I think appropriation is a question when it's posed towards one of us who is in this kind of space trying to, if it's kind of like it's difficult, like how do we navigate this space? Of course Meera Didi is not in the work, but Meera Didi is someone I want to constantly work with. I want to bring her into our spaces so that she can teach us dance. Like there are other ways to remove those middlemen and get to her and bring her here, right? Which is what I've been really trying to do. But yeah, I mean, I do think about appropriation also quite a bit. And also this idea of like, oh, and I wanted to put a Rajasthani woman on an international forum because that's straight, it's a very exoticized idea for people in the West, right? Like, oh, Rajasthan and this woman with the pot and like, oh, but like to put that on an escalator in this kind of, space where it's a mall and it's like the mall is a very Western, we're putting her there without a face, an image that's just doing this. The fact that this is at Embodied Arts Festival, that this is in Berlin, which is exactly why I decided to go with this particular piece. So, yeah, I don't know if I answered the question, but yeah.
Thank you. Shall we bring in the collaborators so we can have a larger party and a larger conversation?
I wanted to pose that question that you asked about public and private to also Sonal, because I think she navigates the space as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the labor one too. Prashansa maybe. Sonal, Prashansa, Paro, will you all come in, turn on your videos, please?
There we are.
Paro. Hi, Sonal.
Hi.
Yeah, Sonal, do you want to respond to the question that Avril was asking?
I think it's an interesting question, the public versus private one. So, I've been, before meeting Avril, I have been doing work for the community, and a lot of our movement has been supported by a lot of cultural activities and, performing in public spaces. And I think that it has been an important question to think about public versus private, because growing up queer, one of the things that you are constantly told is to not be loud about your sexuality, to keep it under the wraps, not to make other people uncomfortable. And you don't see queerness in public spaces. And so it is very important that we do actually reclaim public spaces and come out and be out and loud in these spaces. So for me, it has been an interesting one. And I think that it's very important that a personal becomes public. I know it is difficult. It's a difficult one because it involves and it entails a lot of risk. And yet, I mean, I think if you're looking for larger change, that needs to happen. I think when it comes to Avril's work, it's been interesting working with her because, so far, whatever works I have been part of producing, which have been many, they have mostly involved a community approach. Like a community has got together, we've collaborated together and performed it. And the center of it is a community. It is a community performing for itself, and the impact of a community doing it together is very much larger when you see it. But I think Avril's work has been different for me because it's been largely, it's personal. I mean, she uses her body, and that was interesting to work with her. But I think that what comes across to me as her work being really powerful is the fact that it is so metaphorical. And it has happened that even during Untangle and during the first piece, Mirage, the fact is that in subsequent conversations, they came up a lot. Looping came up a lot, conditioning came up a lot. And all of us exploring what it means to, be part of this work. And then obviously led into whether it was conscious or unconscious, it led into conversations about our queerness or being different and what it means to be private, what it means to be public. And the fact that it's very intimate, the work is very intimate. It's quite interesting that it is in the public space because we are not seeing that kind of intimacy really scaled out outside. And I think that it's an important piece in that kind of way.
And the intimacy of many of you knowing each other so intimately through the process, I think is also a kind of choice one makes, right? Like the choice of having an all queer team is also a kind of a choice that you made. Do you want to do one of you want to talk about that to say how did you land on that choice and what does that make possible in the process?
I think it was because I did first approach a couple of guys about video stuff. And then it was so bad. They were telling me what they think I should do. Like, oh, you could talk about mental health and then you could do, and I was like, what am I doing? And then I spoke to Sonal, like, I have this project, would you come on board? I need to find someone who's queer or someone who gets it, who will spend this intimate time with us and go through this entire process and not hurry us and be like, this time to this time we shoot and this time we stop and this, so, and then, yeah. So
I want to second that with what Avril is saying. Actually, the fact was that the work was very intimate, and the initial conversation, at least that I had with Avril, it was, let's say, it was a piece in work in progress, And one thing was very, very kind of clear right up front that this is going to be a difficult piece. It's going to be intimate. It requires a lot of trust and somebody who's willing to be to understand the work in progress and be part of it. And which is why when I thought of Prashansa, I knew many other people who could have been part of the project, but like for me, it was instinctively her. Because I know that she's been having these questions, and for us, this process has also been a part of, I think, a journey in self-growth. And we also thought that what are the conversations around the project going to look like? And for me, I thought that Prashansa would be an important key player, and I think Avril felt the same way about Paro. So, Prashansa, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to kind of, continue that train of thought. First of all, Sonal and I had already worked together. So there was a comfort level already between the two of us, between the, many projects that we worked together in. There was a language dynamic that was already set in between the two of us. Having said that, going back to what Sonal said, I think between her and me as well, this was, this project was kind of the next step because it really helped us become a stronger team. I think because of the lockdown and after our last project where we had certain creative differences, as happens in all creative works, so we really weren't exactly in touch or anything like that. But when Sonal got in touch with me for this project, I had been cooped up at home, after many, many years. I guess this is where my experience as an immigrant and a migrant and even a person of Northeast origin comes in, because I left home as soon as I was done with my 12th. As soon as I was done with my school for college, I had to go to Delhi, which came with its own set of racial discrimination, after which I moved to Bombay. Bombay was fairly smoother, but you always do. Bombay is a very impersonal city, I feel. That's what I've realized. So, and after having spent 13 years away from home, getting used to a certain kind of lifestyle, being independent, coming back home and adjusting to the lifestyle over here, to the pace over here, that was the headspace I was in when Sonal got in touch with me for the project. And when, as far as projects are concerned, to be honest, there are a dime a dozen, right? Like 10 people will show up at your doorstep saying, okay, I want to make this film. But there will be times when 10 out of 10 of those projects will fail, because when it comes to filmmaking, I mean, that is the kind of perspective that I'm coming from, right? Filmmaking, it takes a village. It really requires, while photography is a very personal art form, filmmaking requires you to interact. And there were many times during the shoot where Sonal and I would just look at each other and we just instantly knew what the other person was saying. Okay, so that in our personal work relationship, that kind of was going to the next level. But then again, like, the whole thing would not have happened if Avril had not been okay with me joining in. So I think I have to kind of say thank you, express my gratitude towards her, because as has been discussed, both the pieces, and especially Untangle, was a very, very intimate one. And for her to let me in that safe space, in her private space, it kind of also fills you with a sense of responsibility about what am I here doing, what am I exactly, what is my role over here. And so a project like this, this was the first time I was working on a project like this, because before this all my works have been either still images, or even if they have been filmmaking, they've been mostly documentary style. But this was the first time that I was getting an opportunity to work on something so abstract. So I really came in with a clean slate. I had no any preconceived notions or about how I should approach. I just approached it as something where I have to be open, where I have to be completely open, where my role is to facilitate the vision that Avril has, and kind of relate that in the visual format. So I really went in with a very open mind, and I think that is why also it worked, and that is why I think the sense of camaraderie also that we established in the 10 days that we were together, it's one of those turning points, right, in people's lives. So this trip and working on these two films was definitely a turning point in my life. And like, it kind of it's like it's a sign of the days to come, and I'm very hopeful for that. Yes. That is what I have to say.
And when it came to Paro, I just didn't give Paro a choice. I was like, Paro is making my music. I had envisioned it already with Paro's music, and then I just spoke to Paro and I was like, Paro, there's this project, will you do it? And this is Paro's first music project in this way. So, Paro, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for saying nice things and making me feel comfortable.
Oh. Yeah,
Okay.
I just want you to be comfortable, yes.
So actually, I was there while the performance was happening. It was performance that was being filmed. Yeah. And it was very difficult to see it because it was a very emotional thing. and the things that were happening in real time, Avril sitting, people doing things to her hair, turn by turn by turn, in the various ways of different people treating it differently, treating her differently. It was hard for me to see, so I can't imagine how hard it would be to actually sit and have that happen, go through that performance. And there were a lot of emotions every day after filming, going home. It's like, I can't talk for a long time because it's so difficult to see it. Yeah, but yes, for the sound, I can talk about that later.
And so I had a question for it immediately, just to,
Okay.
I think we've already got a question from Sana, which says, can Avril talk about the voiceover that happens in Untangle? And also whether the music at some point has a loop of the word no. So just to talk about what the sound is doing in the work, how is it placed and what does it do? What role does it play? Could you talk a little bit more about that, Paro?
Sure. So while making the music, I tried to go back to the emotions that came while I was watching the performance and watching the filming. Not just, I don't know how to say this. I'll try. The filming of the work seemed to me in a way like as if it's an extension of what is being said in the performance. The whole thing, people working on it together, people working on this film, it was very similar. Say, I could see it as a parallel to the way people were playing with Avril's hair. Maybe this is only a personal thing that I felt, but even watching the filming process was as difficult. I tried to stay with those emotions and make music. Could you tell me again what was the question about the loop?
No. Is there a no in the loop?
There is a no. There is a no. Yes.
No. And what role does the no play here? And how did you think of looping the word?
It came very naturally while making music. A lot of sounds came, a lot of different sounds, and the no also came equally naturally, like the other sounds. I don't know what else to say. It came and it stayed for a while.
Yeah, and it's a very, very powerful, what do you call it? A very, very powerful part of the work as well. In a way, it sort of is a way to reclaim agency and to say no to what is being done to you, and to reclaim agency and make choices for yourself. So I have one last question. Maybe that's something that all of you somehow could also respond to, was the question of time. Because I know you all come from very different disciplines. But what really reads as a strong dimension in the work is the dimension of time, where you have this sort of an unfolding of a landscape of repetition that gets that's in a loop, and what you're inviting us to see and hear are these unending loops of movement and sound. So I just wanted to know what role does time play in all of the things that you bring in as collaborators? And we can actually just have all of you sort of respond to this question.
Who wants to go first? I also wanted to add this thing that I know, apart from Paro and her sound and all of that, I also know that Paro also has a complicated relationship with her hair. And that is something that I knew Paro is just going to get. So yeah, that's something I wanted to add. Should I talk about time?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so for me, I really like to slow time down and just be in it. And I love it when time suddenly speeds up and suddenly slows down. Like when you're in love, it goes really fast. And then when you're waiting, it's really slow. And I just love how time is the same, but we experience it in different ways, right? And considering this age and time that we are in, where everything is so fast, I want people to make an effort, and I want only those who can make that effort to get what is there. If you can't make that effort, then I'm okay with you not accessing it. And I think that is something that is important to me. And I want people to be patient, and I want people to go through this painful delay or rush of time with me. So in my live work, while I am actually spending, I don't know, 10 hours of time every day, I want people to feel that weight of that time. And if they don't, or they choose not to, then that's fine. But the ones who do go through it come on the other side of it with me. And I like that feeling. So that's like my personal approach to, and looping and repetition. And these are things that we do all the time. And I feel like in my work, it's just like a small snippet or microcosm of life, of looping and loops and getting up and brushing and, you know, everything that we just keep doing every day. I find it really disorienting that we can live in this kind of loop. Maybe it's great that we have a sense of control and we know what's going on, but I still can't understand how we can just do this every day. So I like to bring that into my work, this feeling of like, and it goes on and on every day again and again. Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah. So I think like for me in this project, time was of, I mean, it was very stressful for me because I know that both Avril and Prashansa are more creatively inclined and therefore they like their time to think through things. But I was the production manager and we had only so many days. A day has only 24 hours and we have the equipment for only so much time. And so, you know, like I think I was the constant timekeeper throughout the whole process, telling people, okay, we have only this much time left. But I think the other challenge that was happening was because I think this was the first time for Avril with a video work of this kind. So I think it was easier to make Prashansa understand that film time is different from performance time. But if you want, you know, like a certain, like 5 minutes of shoot can even look like 15 minutes of shoot on a video work. But you need to get a certain number of, you know, a shot has to be timed to a certain, to give you that feeling or duration. And I mean, the creative vision of this project was with Avril, obviously, but we as a team, I mean, she needed to trust us with the execution, and we can't kind of not execute it because then that is not her, that was not her, it's not her fault. We as a team have to be cognizant. And for that, I think like one felt a whole lot of stress when it came to the time in scheduling this whole project and even making it happen right till the end, till whether it was edit, you know, changing hands and things like that. One had to like plan in advance. And I think I am a scheduler and I like organization of time, which is unusual, which is not, I think, like for more artistic people, most of them I find that they can lose their sense of time. So I felt that I was always conflicting with the other people in my team, but trying to like, you know, politely kind of bring people back into also perceiving time as measured and short, you know.
Paro, you want to say?
Yeah. In my work, I always improvise, be it drawing or music. Improvise and improvise and improvise and then work on those things. And in that way of working and in that way of thinking, I think these loops are very natural. They'll happen anyway. Going forward, going a little further here and then remembering something, and it comes back on its own. It's as if it's going in cycles and cycles. So that way, music is of course a very abstract thing, and it is a reflection of everything else also. So it was very natural to work this way. It came naturally because to improvise is to go in circles of thought and go a little further and go a little further and go somewhere else and then go in circles of thought and remember something from way back. And that was nice to do something so natural.
Well,
something to the question of time, whether there was something that whether time was a consideration for you in the process, in what ways, or anything else that you'd like to sort of respond to.
Was this question directed?
It's directed to Prashansa.
To Prashansa.
Oh, all right. So, see, like when it comes to time, my general philosophy is in life is time is the only real currency we have. And that just directly connects to, I think, Avril's philosophy also. And maybe that is the reason we got along so well. Like from the first time we met, there was this comfort level already. And so what I'm going to say next may not directly be related to, time per se, but I would just like to mention this, something that happened during the shoot. See, first of all, Mirage was, when it comes to labor or like the time for that, like that, you just get the energy somehow, so there is no concept of laboring for art as such. You do it, it's a choice, and you're present, so you don't have any right to complain, right? But while we were shooting Untangle, and I remember we were shooting that ironing scene, and the camera was, so it was all like very DIY and very bootstrapped, and our tripod or whatever the holder was literally like a painting easel. No, easel, what is it called?
Yeah, it's an easel on one side, a stand on one side, and some bricks in between, and the camera kind of hanging.
A ladder, and there's a camera placed, and there are bricks on either side of her head. Okay, so any movement I do, like, could have like drastically changed stories for everybody. But but that shoot went on till like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and 4 o'clock in the morning, three of us head out to give back the equipment. And while we were coming back, we're having this conversation, and Avril mentioned something about, again, like this is also related to the personal and art political divide, because the two are so enmeshed that it is just not possible to kind of separate the two. And she said something about while she was lying there, and obviously all of us are going through our own processes, right? Because like Paro said, this is a performance that we are filming. It's not a film, it's a performance that we are a part of, and we're just filming. So that energy was already there, even though like I'll have to take care of technical stuff, but that awareness was already there, so that sense of being moved was already there, and just witnessing that. So she said something to the effect that while she was lying down over there, one of the thoughts that came to her head was, this is my truth. You just can't escape, right? And like I think like in no uncertain words, that is how like all of us involved in the process were also feeling, like this is our truth. I'm here, I'm present, I'm alive, and I'm choosing to give my time to this project because this project is important for any reason. And the reason does not have to be anything grand, so that was definitely one of the things that will stay with me. And this was one of the realizations that I had recently. Okay, Avril. No, see, there are practitioners and there are artists, right? And there is always that debate because it is so subjective, right? Like, who do you respect? Who deserves your respect as an artist? But I think the answer came to me a couple of days back. And I think because of Avril. Okay. So ever since we met and ever since I have come back, and like Sonal said, we've been discussing the work that we shot as well as, our own experience of working with Avril, right? And so I think, the fact that I was doing it, I realized that I have become a believer. I have become a believer. So I guess that is the difference between a person who just practices, maybe getting like, commercial projects worth XYZ amount of money, but like the artist, this is where, the difference sets in. Like, you will find people who will speak about your work and about you. And, you kind of start preaching about the artist to everyone around you because it has had such a huge impact in your life. So anyway, time well spent. I'm very happy.
Thanks, Prashant. Avril, we have one more question from Sanat, which is the hair has gone.
Yeah.
Talk us through the process of that undoing.
Oh my God. So while I was making Untangle, it was a very personal, intense process because through the process of making this work, I came to the realization that I am actually gay. This is something I didn't know. I didn't know that I could be gay, but I am gay. And I finished making Untangle and Sonal was still with me. We just finished shooting. Prashansa left, we cried, all that happened. And the moment we finished shooting, I think the next day, I had this urge to just cut my hair. At this point, I still didn't know I was gay. I cut my hair first, like this short. Yeah, and then I left Bangalore because I couldn't look at the footage. It was just all extremely emotional, intense. It was like a process that was happening very inside me, still not knowing that I'm gay. And then I went to Goa because I was just not able to stay in Bangalore. It was just a lot. I went to Goa, I reached Goa, and I had this thought that, oh, what if I'm gay? Maybe I'm gay. I think I'm gay. Shit, I'm gay. How did I not know this? All this happened, right? And I think I'm still not able to answer why I cut my hair, but over the last 10 days, I've had 6 haircuts maybe, here to here to here to here to here. This happened yesterday, and I feel like it is a sort of undoing, a sort of reset button, a sort of removing myself, a sort of asserting myself, all these things. And I think it happened only because of Untangle and because of having this queer team around me who are so comfortable with their sexuality, challenging me constantly, being around them. A bunch of things, my own process with becoming a counselor, my own process with all the works before Untangle, like a year of works that have been doing just around sexuality and sex and asexuality and all of this. And yeah, so here I am. I feel like this is it. I gave back the trimmer that I borrowed, and this is it now. I don't know if I will keep this, I will grow it, but it just feels like a reset. And I think it's something that people do when they realize they are lesbian. Maybe I'm just a stereotype, but I'm happy being one. Yeah.
Thank you for, as Milo says to everybody in the message, that actually thank you for being unapologetically vulnerable. And I think it's the vulnerability that really comes across also in the two projects. And for me, I think coming away from this conversation, what I do take away is the potential of vulnerability, of intimacy, also in a way of working, as a kind of setting that up. The potential of that kind of a process is immense, and I think that's something that I'm really coming to. The conversation today has made me alive to that very much. So I want to thank everybody, and I think this is maybe a good time to wrap up before we go into the night. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Avril. Thank you, Paro. Thank you, Sonal, Prashansa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a small request. Can you just quickly take a nice photograph of all of us together? Whoever's is sitting on the laptop.
And also, perhaps, I don't know whether if people who are here also, who've been engaging with the conversation, if you want to be present and
turn on your videos, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, Felicitas! Hi, Sana. Thanks for your questions. Hi, Ostara. Okay, shall we take this picture? I'm going to take this picture.
Please say 1, 2, 3.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just actually, before I end, I want to leave some links here because I think it's good to engage with the festival. I'm leaving 2 links here for you to engage with. There's also a festival guide for.
You have to check out Topia. It is so fun. I go there every day and hang out. It is so fun. Please check out Topia.
And also for us to stay in touch with each other, I am sharing the Instagram handles so that we can, for everybody who hasn't been in touch with us, we can stay in touch. And if the people who've been part of this conversation, if you want to put your email addresses, Instagram handles here so that we can actually stay in touch, that would be wonderful.
Thank you.
Do copy this away because when the conversation ends, then we're going to lose this. So maybe just copy this information for yourself.
Lovely. Thank you, Mandeep. It was great chatting with you, and thank you for doing this with us. And thank you, everybody.
All my pleasure.
And I'll see you in Bangalore.
See you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Done? Done.